your colleague letter is now
Schumer's doing it?
Yeah,
Schumer's
copied
doing
up.
it.
Yeah.
Great joy.
Beware.
Especially when you just give a speech and saying everything that we want to know.
Be aware that very often the audio in this room is pumped out.
Oh, thank you, Frank.
It makes no sense.
Everybody on C-SPAN now knows this.
The brilliant Nancy Pelosi.
Great save, Mike.
Yeah.
Great
Hey, Drew,
save,
did you hear
great
that?
save.
I love you, Drew.
Great save, Paul King.
Tamara, I put her back by the back door. There's Susie space, but you might just want to give a heads up for the
You're keeping laser focused on the work.
Usually we haven't had a crowd like this. And there's another one that wants to come in.
There's a room for one more there. Zach.
I think you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about her.
Oh, her?
Krista, yeah.
All right, yes, sweetie. I'm gonna see if there's any. I'm gonna look for one more one to see if there's some room in this one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's all right. Sorry, I have to.
Immigration in this letter?
Hearing.
No.
You guys
We
name
met
a person
tonight.
yet for the? Not yet.
You've seen them all.
Yeah.
Anyone? All right.
They're all good.
That's good.
What did you suggest for her?
Yeah.
Is it? This is the first time I think we filled up the reporters. Usually it's not an issue.
How's your nutrition?
PT is like made it almost better. Like completely. It's crazy. I'd never done that before.
PT?
Yeah, I've only been twice. She's like, it's like angel hands. Like it's crazy.
Awesome.
I'm a huge believer now.
That's cool. I always have like foot issues when I just like run a ton,
Yeah.
and I've never gone to PT. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, you should just go to physical therapist.
Yeah,
I'm like,
like,
exactly. I feel like it would be a life changing visit.
it really is.
Yeah.
Like really, seriously, only twice. I'm going the third time, but only twice, and like a full hour one time, and maybe 20 minutes. Like the first time, you know, because you do all kinds of screening and they check you and all that stuff. So the first time was only about 20 minutes of regular therapy. So it's only like an hour. Like I have almost full movement in my knee. My leg.
Hey guys. Ooh, looks like I might.
Oh, hello.
Ooh.
Wait, are we like?
Wow.
You know, 10 minutes is like 10 minutes late is on time in Schumer world. So.
I'm okay with that. It's a compliment.
Is he coming soon?
Yeah.
Shit.
I feel like we never see you anymore.
I hide.
Okay, straight up.
I come in 3 times a week.
You do? That's a good spot. That's good 50. She's
2 more hours.
We're secretly
Don't, yeah,
doing it.
don't have him announce that he's gonna keep us here for 2 weeks, so.
You detect the shit out of it.
Yeah, we're at the end of our tether here. It's been a long ass year.
I know he never rests, but we might need some.
Yeah,
They'll still have his Sunday press conferences.
that's right.
Feels like it should be September or something. I don't know.
You just wanna
Three
skip
months.
summer and just go right to the fall.
No, we need
I
all
like
this
a little
recess.
summer.
Yeah.
You didn't let it
I don't
finish.
like much.
It
I
feels
don't
like
want much.
September of 2023.
I don't want it very far into the 80s and then I'm out. I gotta go somewhere north.
Wow.
Hate the summer.
The cabin.
Yep. It's over there in that same hall, right? They're like around the corner. Like in a
There's still like two places.
Joe?
You know, there's one near 250.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Few doors down.
Oh, yeah, that
On
number.
the
Oh,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Tracy.
Yeah, yeah. Are you good? Did you need to focus or anything?
No, I'm good,
Really?
thank you.
Okay.
That's where the gallery kind of is.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think so, not
Like
cheap.
basically, if you walk in that Dirksen entrance,
Yeah.
just went straight.
Just, yes, I've heard about that. It's down on the right. Right? Okay, yeah, I've heard about that. Alright. I'm gonna go try that. When you're done here.
15 here. Hang on.
We got 4 minutes.
I know, can we
Not
all
right
leave?
on this.
We're all agreed to leave?
What's that?
You going to press conference?
I don't remember
Yeah,
Andy's
why
yelling.
not? Yeah.
You don't guys are you guys have
Their
to
time is valuable.
It's a press conference? Yeah, we're hoping to get you.
I can see how you doing that. To read, actually.
No.
Probably.
Me and you.
You're
That's
going
fine.
off correspondence?
Oh, you mean
Great,
today?
curmudgeons and
No.
Braz will do that one. Let's hope Braz do that.
What's up?
He do it on some other ground.
What?
The late, the tardiness. You gotta get on them about the tardiness. He said Andy used to berate General Sen.
Heads up.
Yes.
Alright.
Oh, 11,
Hey.
11.
How much did you win?
I think I'll take
Right,
credit
4
for that.
minutes from now.
We're all ready.
Okey dokey. Full house. Well, I am going to read my statement and not take any questions. Ha ha ha.
I don't think that's the rule today. It's the gallery.
But I'm allowed to still take off my mask. You haven't changed that rule again, right? Okay. Did you see the mask, everyone? I was in Ithaca on Monday. They gave it to me. Ithaca is gorgeous. And when I was in summer, I took a course up in Ithaca when I was in high school, and they still had this expression. Taganek State Park, Buttermilk State Park, my first true love, well, or my first girlfriend. I don't know if she's true love. Okay, in any case, nice to see you all.
Too much.
Okay. Just be serious. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Well, as you know, we've had a busy and extremely productive few months here in the Democratic-led Senate. When Democrats took over the majority on January 20th, the question was, how are we going to get 3 big things done at once? I think a few of you labeled it the impossible task. Confirm Biden's cabinet secretaries, hold a fair impeachment trial, pass robust emergency COVID relief. I'm very proud to say Democrats stuck together and we got the job done. We held an impeachment trial of Donald Trump, which I think showed what a despicable man he is, and got a bipartisan conviction vote. We confirmed all 15 of Biden's cabinet secretaries faster than the previous two administrations had done. We passed the American Rescue Plan, historic legislation that will keep millions of American workers and businesses and families afloat while boosting our economic recovery. The American Rescue Plan is nothing short of transformational and delivers real help to American families, the middle class, and those struggling to get there. It's interesting, the contrast between us and the Republicans. The bottom 20% in our plan will get a 20% increase in their income. The top 1% in our plan, zero, nada. The opposite of what the Republicans did, where one estimate showed that 83% of their proposal went to the top 1% when they had their big bill, their tax bill. And that, in a nutshell, shows what each party is about. And we were able to pass the plan in a focused way that got the aid to the Americans who needed it most. So it's been a busy 2 months, but we're just getting started. The Senate must continue to make progress on the other major issues facing the American people. When the Senate returns in April, we're going to begin to focus on 3 major areas: voting rights and civil rights, economic recovery and jobs with an emphasis on climate change and building back better, and health and gun safety. We will try to work with our Republican colleagues on a bipartisan basis when and where we can. We welcome it. But if they choose to obstruct, rather than work with us to deliver the bold help that American families need, we will push forward and make progress nonetheless. Failure is not an option. When the Senate, let me go on each of these issues. When the Senate returns on April 12th, the first item we will consider are Senator Hirono's COVID hate crimes legislation to combat hate crimes, especially in the Asian American community, and confirming top positions at the Department of Justice, including the nominees for Deputy AG and Associate Attorney General. Last week, the Senate Judiciary Committee held the first ever hearing on the Equality Act, landmark legislation passed by the House that would enshrine, as a matter of principle and of law, that no American shall be denied justice based on their gender or their sexual orientation. At the same time, the Senate Judiciary and Rules Committees have started their work responding to the concerted nationwide attack on voting rights of millions of Americans that we haven't seen since the era of Jim Crow. This week, the For the People Act, a bill critical to reforming our democracy, received its first ever Senate hearing in the Rules Committee, ably chaired by Amy Klobuchar. The Senate Judiciary Committee will also soon begin its consideration of the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. In the coming weeks and months, each of these bills will receive full consideration in committee and eventually on the Senate floor. On jobs and climate change, in the coming weeks and months, the Senate will also consider legislation to rebuild our infrastructure and fight climate change, boost R&D and domestic manufacturing, reform our broken immigration system, and grow the power of American workers. Senate committees are marking up legislation to invest in clean water, environmental justice, transportation, and broadband systems, and more. Every one of these seems to have bipartisan support. Committees are also finalizing legislation to bolster American competitiveness and create good-paying jobs by making investments in emerging and critical industries here, and countering the growing economic threats we face from across the globe, especially from the Chinese Communist Party. We will also continue to coordinate with President Biden and his administration on their proposals to build back better. We expect to learn more details in the coming days on the President's budget and his Build Back Better proposal focused on economic recovery, jobs, and climate change, a very powerful threesome. Finally, on health and gun safety, the Congressional Review Act is one of the tools we have at our disposal to undo damage done by previous administrations and help the bold change our country needs. Specifically, led by Senator Murray, the Senate will use the CRA to repeal the new burdensome and dilatory Equal Employment Opportunity Commission rule that gives employers an unfair advantage over workers when settling discriminatory claims. Additionally, Senators Heinrich, King, and Markey will lead, and we will hold a vote to overturn President Trump's rollback of limitations on methane emissions from oil and gas, which will be an important step to combat climate change. And finally and sadly, we also must take action to deal with the epidemic of gun violence that has plagued this nation and gone unaddressed by the Senate for far too long. I'm speaking with my colleagues, including Senators Murphy and Blumenthal, two of our leaders on this issue, to discuss the best path forward. I'm talking to them today. So, we've accomplished a lot, but we're just getting started. Ready for your questions. We're going to start and work our way around.
Senator Schumer, what you mentioned it briefly, but I didn't see it in your letter or in the speech on the floor. Immigration reform, a very real situation, no matter what you call it, at the border. So I wonder just exactly what do you plan to do, because it's only going to get worse in the weeks ahead.
Well,
and are you yourself going to go to the border?
Well, look, at the bottom line is that I believe in comprehensive immigration reform. I'm full supporter of the bill Menendez had. This House has sent us other bills, and we're going to meet and figure out the best way forward where we can get the most done.
Do you personally support getting rid of the 60-vote threshold on most legislation?
I believe that big, bold action is an imperative. We must get that done. And we prefer our Republican colleagues to work with us on these things. Many of the things I mentioned are bipartisan in the sense that a majority of Republicans support them. But if they don't, our caucus will come together and we will discuss the best way to produce that big, bold action. And as I've said before, everything is on the table. Yes?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. There's been a lot of conversation about the Biden agenda, sort of hearkening back to the days of FDR and the New Deal and LBJ and the Great Society. Your agenda here seems to tap into some of those things.
Yes.
What did you think the American people want a return to big government?
Just look, if you just go out there and talk to them. American people know we need big, bold change. COVID has shown that the private sector can't do it alone. Those Republicans on the hard right who said do nothing were discredited even by their own party and even by former President Trump. So we need big, bold change, and the federal government has to be a big part of it. And I believe the American people want it and are ready for it. COVID has shown so many of the problems in our society that existed before COVID. So yes, I believe that America is ready for big, bold, comprehensive change. That's what Joe Biden has proposed. His proposals are very popular. That's some of the things we have done. The ARP, the most progressive, most comprehensive piece of legislation in decades. I believe the last survey I showed 60% of Republican voters support it. Yes?
Are these two background check bills that the House passed that are now moving to the Senate sufficient, or do you support President Biden's call for a ban on assault weapons?
I was the author of the assault weapons ban in the House and of the Brady Law, and we need to move forward. And as I said, I'm going to sit down with Murphy and Blumenthal this afternoon, and we're going to plot the best way to go forward to get the most done. Yes? Yes, go ahead, Bonus.
Mr. Leader, I want to ask you about building back better infrastructure, the game plan here. You said in your letter that you're going to go through the regular order process on the surface transportation, water, and
when we can
broadband
get,
bill.
I'm sorry.
But, you know, the president's talking about trillions of dollars in spending. Senator Sanders says he's ready to go into reconciliation for that. How are these processes coming together and interacting?
Well, look, I have said repeatedly, in areas where we can work with our Republican colleagues, we will. Even in ARP, the First Amendment I put on the floor as Majority Leader, that's the power a Majority Leader has, what to put on the floor, was a bipartisan amendment that was strong. It was the Restaurants Act, sponsored by Senator Sinema of Arizona and Senator Wicker of Mississippi. So when we can get even parts of the bill where Republicans will work with us, good. And maybe they'll work with us on more and more and more. Infrastructure has traditionally been bipartisan. I think the American people know we have to do infrastructure in a new green way, and hopefully we can get them to work with us. But as I said, if we can't, we're going to have to move forward.
Oh, Senator Schumer, some of your colleagues like Manchin and Angus King say there should be some offsets to the infrastructure package. You've said that bringing back the SALT deduction is one of your top priorities. Will you move a tax reform bill with the infrastructure package?
We're discussing all of this with the White House. Our discussions have just been preliminary.
Senator, when you were in the minority, you joined plenty of efforts to filibuster legislation. So why was it okay for you to join those efforts? And secondly, are you willing to live in a minority, assuming when you're in the minority
Okay,
again sometimes,
let me answer your
and
question.
give up that potent tool?
The big difference is that we were always willing to negotiate in a bipartisan way. Mitch McConnell isn't. The bills he puts on the floor, even when he calls them bipartisan, aren't, like the first CARES bill, like the policing bill. There's no discussion. No discussion. We are sitting down. I am encouraging my colleagues to sit down with Republicans and move forward. There's a big difference in how we're conducting things and the way they're conducting things. And we're going to put these bills on the floor. We're going to see votes on them. So I believe, as I said, we need big, bold action, and we will figure out the best way to go. Everything is on the table. That's all I'm going to say to you.
How do you plan to pay for an infrastructure bill, and are you open to tax increases?
That's one of the things that we're going to discuss with the president.
Senator Schumer, last week Senator Durbin gave a challenge to senators on both sides of the aisle that if you believe you can pass an important bill subject to the filibuster, let's do it next week. He said, quote, let's debate it, let's amend it, let's vote. I don't think that that's unreasonable to ask. Why not do that on gun legislation this week?
As I said, we want to pass the strongest bill that can pass, and I'm going to sit down with Murphy, Blumenthal, and others and figure out how to go.
Why not strike while the
Go
iron's
ahead.
hot?
Yeah.
Leader Schumer, your party doesn't seem to be on the same page on raising the minimum wage. How do you raise the minimum wage if you guys aren't on the same page?
We had a good discussion yesterday. Not yesterday. Wednesday. In the room were Senator Sanders, who wanted the meeting, Senator Murray, Wyden, and myself, all of whom believe in the bill that was on the floor, as well as each of the 8 Democrats who voted against it. And we began to discuss areas in which we might move forward. I thought it was a first meeting. It didn't resolve everything, but it gave me some hope that we might be able to come to an agreement. Everyone in that room agrees that we have to try to come to an agreement to go forward. And right now there are still differing views on that, but we've made some progress. Yes?
Mr. Leader, thank you. Just as you get ready to take this break, what percentage of senators are vaccinated at this point? And when do you hope that the Senate can return to, more
Well,
regular
it's not
business
just
in
the
terms of
senators.
in-person
Yeah, it's
staff
not just the senators, it's the staff, it's the people who clean, it's the people who serve the food. We need to have everybody safe, and then a decision will be made. I'm going to leave that to the authorities, to Dr. Monahan, to our Sergeant at Arms, to our Secretary of the Senate. I do not know the answer to your first question.
What is your best hope?
Sooner the better, but only safely.
Let me talk to you about January 6th.
No.
But some of the committees are investigating. Senator Peters' committee is investigating, the other committees. Do you expect a report on this? And what about this bipartisan commission? Is there any hope on that happening at all?
Well, it's been proposed, the bipartisan commission. I told her I support the concept. She's trying to work that through in the House. I don't know if they've had any results yet. Now, and what we have been doing in the Senate is letting our committees take the lead. Senator Klobuchar, Senator Peters, Senator Warner, there's one more, all of whom have some jurisdiction over this, are looking into this in a serious way and are coordinating with each other. And that's how we're proceeding at this point.
You talked about your discussions coming up with Senator Murphy and others about the gun legislation. I'm just curious, how do you tell, particularly like skeptical Democrats, that this time really will be different when the Senate tends to go in these cycles on gun bills every time there's a mass shooting, and now you're going home for 2 years?
Look, here's what I'd say to you. Mitch McConnell, after the terrible shootings in Las Vegas and El Paso, said, we're going to have a debate and a vote. We never did. He was afraid to put those bills on the floor. This is a different Senate. We are going to debate, and everyone's going to have to vote. And 80% on a background check bill, 90% of the public, 80% of gun owners are for it. So it's different, and we'll see if we can make progress. We're going to figure out, as I mentioned, the best way to make progress and move forward on that. My job is to find the most forward progress that we can get done. That's my job. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. What are you doing on recess?
Traveling New York State,
Yeah?
starting to visit my counties again.
Cattaraugus.
62 counties.
Come to Cattaraugus.
Is there an election
I'll be
next
there.
year?
I was just talking to the Seneca tribe.
Yeah.
Is what?
Is there an election next year?
Do I visit every one of the 62 counties, every one of the 22 years I've run? Burgess? Yes or no?
I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Yes or no?
So you're not concerned about a primary challenge?
Bad comment, Burgess.
There's more, Senator Grasso too, there's more counties in Iowa, so he's not gonna be too impressed.
Manu, I like how you like, Manu, that was good. You're just like, what?
That's pretty good.